Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels with me, Jill and Sean. And for once, we're all together.
In the same room.
We are all in the same room recording
But
this.
I'm a little disappointed because you haven't got Marley with you this time. Last time you joined us, you'd got Marley.
Well, I've been doing some work close to here and Marley... Well, actually, they wouldn't have minded Marley being there. I have taken Marley to that particular place of work before.
Yeah.
But
right.
I just...
Oh, we'd have liked to have seen
Nobody
him as
would have
well.
liked.
Yeah.
It's just
Next
sometimes
time.
when you're trying to do a job and you're thinking, right, okay, I've got to go and film over there. He's basically going to follow me at my heel everywhere I go, and sometimes I'd be tripping over.
Well trained,
Bless
well
him.
trained. And later on, we're going to be hearing from a head gardener, Keith Donner. He's at Hackthorne Hall in Lincolnshire, and we're going to be finding out all about the amazing walled garden that he looks after.
We've got the best way to deadhead a rose. Well,
controversial.
Is it that simple? Who knows?
It's
You'll
never
find out
that
later.
simple, is it? And we've had lots of lovely comments from people watching our videos on YouTube, our Pots and Trowels videos. So thank you for making those comments. And one or two questions have popped up on those comments as well, which I think Sean's got for us.
Yeah, there's a question that's come on YouTube on our video about how to pot perfect sweet peas.
That's not easy to say either.
Well, you know, it's consummate professional. I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't read who did it. But no, it's from a user called Lake Lady. It says, mine are really pale green. Just transplanted them to my garden. I'm hoping they green up again.
Yeah, it sounds like they're just a little bit hungry. If they've been in the pots or the containers that they were grown in for a little bit too long and they've used all the nutrients, so they're just looking that little bit starved and they go a bit pale. So get them in the garden. What if you haven't already done it, give them a little bit of a feed, so a liquid feed, a bit of seaweed or any liquid feed you've got. And once they get the roots out into the soil around them, they'll green up and hopefully start to make some nice tall growth, followed by flowers.
Fabulous. We've got a everlasting sweet pea in our garden, and it is going nuts at the moment with greenness, but not much in the way of flowers.
Okay, and when it does flower, is it a pink one or a white one?
Can't remember.
Oh, right. Well, we'll look forward to finding
There's
out.
a purple one as well. I'm sure we've
There's
had
is almost sort of purpley pink.
Mm.
Yes, there is. Yes, yes. So no, we'll have to get another one of those. I've got all the. Although we're running out of space to plant in the garden, aren't we?
Well, we talked about this last
are.
week, and you've had your new patio, and I'm here in person, so I can see the queue of plants that are waiting to be.
Quite a lot, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got some planting to do. Is this okay time of year to do that sort of thing?
Oh, it is at the moment because we've still got plenty of moisture in the ground and it's been quite cool as well. And I always think, they're better in the garden than in a pot. So this weekend, I'm hoping to get quite a lot of them planted because next week we're going to be at the Lincolnshire show. So I need to get them in the ground now, get them watered in, and they can start to make some root.
We've had, in fact, talking of things like this, on our video about how to create and prepare a new border, somebody's really, really grateful that we put that video out. It says a complete novice needing to dig out a border, and it was invaluable. Thank you very
good.
much.
Well
Good.
done.
Well, I
Glad
hope it
was of
looks
help.
lovely. You have to send us a picture.
Yeah, we shall. I shall make sure they know to check out the podcast, and then we can catch up with them later.
That'd be good.
And if you've got a question for us, drop us an email. That's the best way. info@potsandtrowels.com. Or if you'd like, you can put a comment on one of our videos or get in touch on Facebook.
So now let's go over to Hackthorne Hall and have a chat with Keith.
Keith, you're the head gardener here at Hackthorne Hall, and we're sitting in the walled garden, which is wonderful, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you've been working in horticulture all your life, so tell me how it all started for you.
It started off that I applied for an apprenticeship at Rysholme College, which I was successfully able to. They offered it to me, so I worked on the grounds and the soft root for a number of years there.
And while you were there, that would have been the days when it was City and Guilds qualifications and that type of thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you worked on the grounds and gained the knowledge, and went actually into the college one day a week to gain a qualification.
So the farm there, the fruit farm, that was a commercial part of the college, was it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was the age of the chest freezer where the housewife was still making jams and freezing stuff. So it was big business.
So you'd be growing tons and tons of raspberries and strawberries and...
Yeah, gooseberries, red and black currants, anything on the soft fruit line, blackberries, tayberries, It was all big market for it.
Yeah, and you were there, I think you told me, was it 20 odd years? You did a good stint there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, about 26 years. But obviously as the time evolved, the soft fruit era passed, and we then developed a small plant centre there.
Right, okay. And then before you came here to Hackthorne, you, I think you had another job as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a brief stint in the Lincoln Arboretum after it was revamped on the lottery funding.
Right, okay. Do you know, I've never been to the Arboretum. Are there some interesting trees there?
Yeah, it's quite nice. They've got the avenue down the middle of the limes, which is very nice, and the water features. Yeah, it's a very nice city park.
Yeah, good. I'll have to do it. I'll have to go in and have a look. But then you came here to Hackthorne, head gardener of everything that we can see. We're in the walled garden. So do you want to just describe what we're sitting in, what it looks like?
It's a very tall walled garden, slightly sloping to the south, very, very warm and protected, like a small microclimate. Walls are clad with fan and espalier fruit trees, and the beds are nicely edged off with gravel paths and lots of cut flowers and seasonal veg as it comes ready.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very traditional walled garden, isn't it? And I know you like to garden traditionally, don't you? And use some of the old methods which are tried and tested.
Yeah, we try and keep it as traditional as possible, really, with a slight modern twist to manage it, really.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to do now. It's because you're the main gardener here, aren't you? So it's a big workload.
Yeah, that's correct. There's only myself managing the kitchen garden and the whole of the site. Yes.
Yeah. And overall, because I think the walled garden we think is a couple of acres, but there's about 15 acres of grounds as well around, so it keeps you busy.
Yeah, borders and box hedge cutting and topiary and all things like that, and pleached hedges and various borders and one thing or another.
You must be very good, Keith, at managing your time, because I suppose there's jobs to do in all areas. So do you just sort of have to prioritise, or do you have after nearly 20 years, you have such a routine now you can just go around it and know what you're doing?
Yeah, really, you just got to keep your eye on it and prioritise, really, and hopefully it doesn't get away from you.
Yeah, well, it's looking beautiful. I mean, we're sitting here, as you say, it's very warm. It was quite cool this morning when I drove up here, but as soon as you get into the walled garden, it is that warmer climate, isn't it? And it is looking beautiful. I'm looking around at the walls, the soft fruit. I mean, some of that must be very old. It's not all been planted by you, has it?
No, some of the old pears are the original trees, and obviously we've planted new ones because things don't last forever. So you've got to keep the continuity of things coming on, and hopefully it'll set up for the next gardener as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. But because they are beautifully pruned, they are some of the nicest wall fruit I've seen anywhere. So you must be a bit of a master when it comes to the pruning technique.
Yeah, it's quite an art, really.
Yeah.
It's a dying art, really.
And did you, I suppose, having worked at Rhizome, you'll have been taught all of that there, or did you have to sort of learn again when you came here?
A bit of both, really, because as decades change, these things come and go. So you got it under your initial training, but obviously it's very time consuming.
It is, isn't it? But it's rewarding when you've done it, isn't it? To see, do you do a lot of the pruning in late summer, early autumn?
Right through the winter, really, in between other jobs.
Right.
You just got to keep filling in with it whenever you can,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Oh, well, I did see them in the winter when they were just bare and they looked beautiful shape, and because we're in full leaf now and there'll be fruit forming on them as well. And behind us, because we're sitting facing down the slope, you've got the glasshouse range. There's some more modern, but you've got some of the old Victorian glasshouses as well. Tell us about those.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the lean-to greenhouses facing south, which is very, very tropical climate. We've got the old Black Hamburg grapevine that was planted in 1868, which is still producing today, going strong.
Yeah.
We've got fan-trained apricots as well in the other greenhouses, so they come before the outside crop.
A lot of stuff happening in there. And back to the grapevine, am I right in thinking you believe that's to be one of the oldest in a private garden that's still in cultivation?
Yes, we believe it to be, but you just never know if there's one that's slightly older, but we believe it to be.
And it's thought that would have come as a cutting off the one that's grown at Hampton Court.
Yeah, it's every possibility. That's what happened in them days. Yeah, where estates shared their produce, sort of thing, and and crops.
Well, it's looking good. It's still looking very strong. And I remember seeing it last year. It did have a big crop of grapes on it. So, I mean, what do you do with all the grapes on that? Are they for wine or are they just eaten?
Yeah, sometimes some people have a go at making a bit of wine, but they go on the cheese board up at the hall for after dinner sort of thing.
Do you get the odd bunch as well?
Oh yeah, you got to sample them.
It is amazing. And then you've also got a bit of an orchard planted here as well, which is, you've got a lot of apple trees there, so you're going to get a lot of fruit off those.
Yeah, we have a good selection of Vitas, and obviously we store a lot of Bramleys for your apple pies in the winter, which works out quite well.
Yeah, no, it's all looking good. And the thing that I love about the garden is you've got all your vegetables growing newly planted, your brassicas are in, I can see various things. But then you've got lots of cut flower as well. And that, I think, really makes the walled garden look attractive. And at the moment, of course, we're in the Sweet William season, but you've got others that will be coming on all the way through the summer, haven't you?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to cut flowers, right through till the end of October sort of thing.
Right, yeah. And lots of dahlias, they look like they're some good old tubers you've planted because they're big, strong plants.
Yeah, various varieties, different flowering forms, for different occasions sort of thing.
And you save the tubers from year to year or take cut-ins?
Yeah, we lift and dry and store all through the winter. They're reintroduced next spring.
Right, okay. And I'm also impressed by your pelargoniums. You've got some quite big pelargoniums, so they're obviously a few years old, I suspect.
Yeah. I mean, so every so often we take cuttings, but some of the old plants are lifted and stored through the winter to get bigger sized ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do really well. Quite drought tolerant they are.
Yes, they are, aren't they? Yeah. And there's a lot of them, the scented leaves. So I'm sure when people walk by, they just have a touch of them. It's good. It's all looking brilliant. I mean, I'm amazed that one person can keep this looking as good as it is, because it is really immaculate. So hats off to you, Keith.
Good, thank you very much.
So I hope I'm not having to make you work overtime now that you've had a chat with me.
No, it'll be all fine.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to have a wander around, and thanks for telling us a little bit about this wonderful garden. I ought to ask, is it open to the public at all?
We have several. We have a big snowdrop Sunday in February, and then we're open again in September.
Right, okay. So anybody in the Lincolnshire area, look out for it. It
Yes,
is
that's
well
right.
worth a visit, and you're always here to chat to people as well, aren't you?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'll be here.
Yep. Thanks, Keith. That's great.
Coming up in a little while, we're going to have some listeners' questions. And remember, if you've got a listener's question, drop us an email, info@potsandtrowels.com. But I just had to say this because I'm here in the room with Martin and Jill. And I've just come from Rhizome, which is where Keith trained.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Rhizome is still there, isn't it? Because you've obviously been there today.
Yeah.
But it was, yes, a big agricultural college, horticultural college in the day. Going back in time, all the counties had their own county college, of which Rhizome was the local college for Lincolnshire.
Quite well renowned, well respected, wasn't it? I mean, it's now part of the. Well, I think Rhizome College still exists somewhere else, but the original campus is now part of the University of Lincoln. I go there to film people who are doing agricultural robotics, which is very interesting. Devices. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but a lot of my filming happens in a room that's in Rhizome Hall that has all sorts of old journals of RHS horticultural magazines and rare breed sort of. They all used to come in volumes, I think it's kind of like the history of herds and things like that. They're all behind a locked glass cabinet, so I've not actually looked through them. But
That looks lovely. I would love
to see
rows
that.
of old books and
yeah, it's really nice. Quite it's a nice place to film, but there's like a juxtaposition because we're talking about robotics and sending out driverless tractors and things, and then behind them is like 1873 rare herd almanac or whatever.
And that's interesting, though. A lot of these old, they were originally sort of like farming institutes, these county colleges. They tended to be in old country houses with a small estate, a few hundred acres. And I think a lot of them started up after the Second World War, when they were empty.
Yeah.
They were taken over by the local councils and started off as a farm institute.
There's still a working farm there at Rhizome. And of course, we've just heard a lot about soft fruit. Well, they do robotic strawberry picking in a polytunnel at Ricehome these days. So they have these devices that drive down and take photos of the strawberries to see if they're red or green or white.
Clever stuff.
Yeah, it's all very clever stuff, and drones flying over the top and all sorts. It's
I've got
crazy.
a robot to do my garden called Jim.
Here we go.
Well, it made me smile when you were talking to Keith, because he was saying that he grows in quite a traditional manner, and the look of Hackthorn is very traditional, isn't it, with the walled garden? But of course, in the old days, Victorian days, when Hackthorn would have been at its peak, they had an awful lot more workers, didn't they? They didn't just have a Keith; they had several young boys to sort of cart things around, and so it's changed completely.
Oh, they would have probably had. I mean, there's 15 acres there. So that's the lovely sort of pleasure grounds around the old hall, lots of topiary there, not garden, so lovely manicured lawns going down to a
high
lake.
maintenance.
Yes, and then there's the walled garden. They would have probably had 8-10 gardeners in its day, probably 2 or 3 permanently in the walled garden, if not more at certain times. There would have been a head gardener. There is still an old head gardener's cottage on the estate. Keith doesn't live in it, he chooses not to, but yeah, it would have been a real community there for them.
You've often said that you quite fancy being a head gardener in a private home, don't you?
Yes,
Especially if you got a lovely cottage with it
I know,
as well. It'd be really
yes, a bit
nice.
too old now, but I was a head gardener when I was young for a local authority at Rufford Abbey, but I always thought, yes, to sort of live in the walled garden in a house, that would have been wonderful.
I wonder if you could do it as a kind of like, I don't know, holiday cover or something. Just play at it for 2-3 weeks when someone like Lucy, who we've had on the podcast
Exactly,
before, goes on holiday.
That could be like a travelling
Yes,
head gardener.
travelling
filling
head
in-
gardener.
Yeah, a locum, that's right, yes. Just have my secretaires with me and just travel anywhere around the country, yeah.
I like the sound of that.
I wonder if most head gardeners aren't actually allowed to take a holiday in the summer, because we never go away in the summer, do we? Because there's too much to keep on top of here. But you perhaps always have to take your holidays
But
in
we
the
do
winter.
go away. We don't have a holiday. We
Well,
work
no,
at lots
but
of flower
shows,
shows.
yes,
So it's
yeah.
not a
That's
holiday.
different. That's different.
Yeah, it is. So no, it's amazing. I mean, what he does up there on his own, there's an awful lot of work. So he obviously has quite big mowers to do all of that side, and he tries to automate what he can. But
Well, that's interesting, actually. You just mentioned that, because it made me wonder. You mentioned before about how many gardeners would have been working. I mean, how much automation would you have had 100 years ago?
Very little.
Would have been lots of shears and clippers and...
It would have been, and there were mowers 100 years ago, but they probably 100 years ago there would have probably been petrol ones. But going back 150 years, there would have been just small push mowers, and they'd have had, on the big lawns, they'd have probably had a horse-drawn mower on the lawns in front of the hall. So yes, so Keith, he does really well, and it is worth a visit if anybody lives in the Lincolnshire area. It's usually, I think, the first Sunday in September they do an opening. The vines are looking good, the dahlias, the walled garden. You can go in the church because it's all to raise money for the church. So it's worth looking it out to look at it.
Am I right in thinking they sell bunches of grapes on the September? I seem to remember that was our first visit, wasn't it? It was in a September visit.
I can't remember. I know I pinched
I
one
know.
off the vine.
I wasn't sure if you were going to confess
It fell
to
off
that.
into my hand as I walked
Well, you were
by.
just checking whether it was ripe.
Yeah,
need to, yes.
And was it very juicy?
It was very nice.
Was it
Are they
nice?
sweet though? Because I mean, any experience I've had with grapes grown in the UK, they've never quite got to that sweetness.
Well, yeah, this one. I mean, Black Hamburg is a dessert vine anyway, and it's in this glass house.
Sorry, I missed that because I thought
it's
it was
undercover,
outside.
and it's got a trunk on it,
It's
sort of
huge, isn't it?
bigger in diameter than your body. You can barely get your arms around it. So yeah, I mean, it's been in almost 200 years, 175
We know
years.
it's very old, but we don't know exactly how
Well,
old.
yes. I mean, Keith thinks that they think it probably came as a cut-in off the Black Hamburg at Hampton Court,
Right, very famous one, isn't
which is older than the one up at Hackthorn. And in those days, of course, all the head gardeners knew each other, all the families moved around and visited. So he said, he imagines it would have been sent up in a parcel to the train station, would have been collected by a horse and cart and brought up to the garden and planted, and it's still there.
Well,
all those
I'd
years
imagine
later.
some Victorian lady with a petticoat, holding the cutting in,
What,
carefully.
sneaking it away, snipping it when nobody was looking and
Like
bringing
on a
it back to
garden scheme or
Lincolnshire.
something.
But they will get, I mean, they've reduced it a little bit in size, but I think it still carries hundreds of bunches of grapes on it. And I did say to Keith, have you got young plants growing off it? as cuttings, and he said, no, we haven't. And I said, well, you should do, because
Yeah.
if anything ever happened to it, and it looks really healthy, don't get me wrong, but you always want to have a few in reserve, don't
And is
you?
that
An air and
just
spare.
with that? I mean, I'm sure it's not as simple as this, but is that just as simply a case of taking a cutting off it?
Yes, I mean nowadays they graft them, and you could graft it if you bought a vine rootstock, but they root really easily from hardwood cuttings in the winter. About a foot long, thick as your little finger. Push them into pots, keep them in the glass house, and they root really easily.
Okay.
We had a lovely vine in our North Yorkshire home, didn't we, in the greenhouse there? And I can't remember what it was called, but it had this most delicious taste.
Raspberry or something?
It was the strawberry vine.
Strawberry
Well done.
vine.
Oh, it's close.
Yeah.
It was.
It was quite a small fruit, wasn't it? And the pips seemed huge, so you weren't getting a lot of
But
fruit.
it had got that
for your
sweet.
mouthful, but-
It's called the strawberry vine because it's supposed to taste of strawberries, and it was. I think it's Vitus frigola. Frigola is Latin for strawberry, and it had got that. It's quite a
sort of strawberry
sweet flavour.
Yeah.
But I liked it. It was really nice,
was
and I
nice.
meant to get a cutting off it before we left, and I forgot.
If it's still there.
Probably have to go
Just
back and
sneak
jump
back
over the
in.
wall.
Yeah.
In your milk tray outfit.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm validating
I'm just
myself
having
there.
visions of Martin in a milk tray outfit now.
Okay, I need to explain that in case there's anyone out there who didn't grow up in the 70s watching British TV. Milk Tray Man was a James Bond-like character
Yes.
who used to sneak around and leave boxes of chocolates in, presumably, women's boudoirs.
Well, because the lady
Yeah.
loves milk tray.
Other chocolates are available.
That's right, exactly. But if they want to sponsor us, they can.
Absolutely. Should we get on some listeners' questions?
Yeah, we got a question.
Yes, I think we have. We have one from Andy Farmer. Hi, Andy. And he says, this year is 60 years since his mum introduced him to gardening. I'm trying to create a memory garden with a selection of her favourite plants. What a lovely idea. I've been unable to locate one that mum called White Rock, and I don't know what its real name is. It's trailing greyish silver leaf plant that has small white 4-petal flowers. If I remember it rightly, it would make a nice edging for what I have in mind. It seemed to be in everyone's garden in the 60s. Is that something you can recognise?
Yes, it was. And my mother and my grandma had it in their garden. I bet your mum and dad had
Does it
it.
begin with a G?
No.
I was trying to have a guess there.
no.
26 options. Isn't
Yeah,
there?
well, that's it. Well, it's a little bit like people probably know Aubrietia, which has got those lovely mauve purple flowers that cascades. They'd have it on a wall cascading down. It's a bit like the white version of that. It's some people call it snow in summer. That's what I know it. But Andy has got it. Is it white rock? But it is this alpine trailing plant with this silvery grey small leaf, and it will cascade over a rockery or over a wall. And then late spring, it has these really white flowers, hence the name Snow in Summer. Although this summer's been cold enough for real snow. We had hail, Sean, this week.
We did.
Wow.
We had hail one afternoon. It started to rain and turned to hail, and it was bouncing all over our new patio that Adam made for us.
Anyway, back to Andy.
So its botanical name is Serasium tomentosum. And you'll know it as Snow in Summer. You'll find it in seed catalogues, or you might even be able to buy it as a plant in a garden.
I think I've seen it in garden
It's not as
centres.
popular as it used to be. Everybody had it in the 60s and 70s. It was one of those go-to
Yeah.
rock garden plants, and it is lovely. And you can grow it there. Once you've got it, you can divide it. You can take cuttings. But I think if you can't find it in a garden centre, buy some seed. Sow it now, because then you'll get young plants to put in the garden in the autumn to establish, and you'll get flowers next year.
And remember, our watchers of videos get a discount on King's Seeds, don't they?
They do, yeah. If you're followers of us on Pots and Trowels, yeah. So
check out the code over on YouTube.
it is, yes, exactly there. So yeah, you can get 10% on all seeds.
Fabulous. Have we got any jobs we need to be doing at the moment in the garden?
Well, I can always find
sure
one or
we
two.
have.
Sure, there's something we need to be doing.
I
yeah.
spent all afternoon in the garden yesterday and managed to squeeze in between some horrible weather.
Yeah.
So I edged all the lawns and I hoed all round and got rid of a few more clumps of ground elder as
Yeah.
well by sort of digging that out. So yeah, I feel really pleased with myself.
And I must admit, I'd been away. I'd been to the Big Smoke,
Yeah.
been to London yesterday to a very important meeting, Sean, at the RHS.
Oh, 'cause he's a very important
person.
I've mostly been sitting around waiting for my grass seed to germinate.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Hasn't happened yet. Yeah, no, that's not actually true. And hopefully Martin and Jill don't mind this little plug. I've been up in Fleetwood filming a charity music video.
Yes.
And we will get to the jobs in the garden in a moment, honestly, everybody. But yeah, very, very important to me anyway, the charity Magic Breakfast, who help provide breakfasts to children who can't afford it. So we'll put the link in the show notes if anybody wants to go and watch that video. It would be a good help.
Where can people see the video then?
Videos on YouTube or Facebook.
Okay.
It's to do, well, the people who've done it are Flake Fleet Primary School, who were Britain's Got Talent Golden Buzzer winners in 2019. And the head teacher there, Dave, is brilliant. And he is basically, he's a force of nature, and he's done some amazing things. And just asked me to come along and help do some filming for him. So we put the video out. It's out there. The song is available to buy, and all the proceeds will go to this amazing charity, Magic Breakfast.
It looked a great fun to do that video. It looks like everybody was having a whale of a time.
It was a ball.
All the kids were enjoying it.
Yeah,
There's
just
so many happy
natural.
faces. And throwing.
Yeah.
Was it like a red dust in the air?
Well,
chalk?
it's like the paint they use for
right.
a holy festival, where they throw these coloured paints in the air, but it's edible. So the kids were very safe. It was going in their eyes and their noses, up their mouths, but they were just smiling their heads off and eating it basically. But yeah, check it out. Have a look at the video. I'll put the link in the show notes. But anyway, we need to get back to gardening, because this is supposed to be a gardening podcast.
But it's all interesting stuff. No, I was going to say, when I pulled into the drive last night in the car, I instantly saw Jill had done the garden. She'd done a makeover.
Well, it's been a little bit neglected, because we've also been having a lot of work done in the house. So I have been decorating everywhere. So it's in between rollering walls, I'm hoeing borders.
It's better than watching paint dry. Anyway.
It is, isn't it? Yes. So on to the jobs then. Pelargoniums, Keith mentioned them. He's got some of the old-fashioned pelargoniums. If you've got pelargoniums in pots or in the garden, I like to grow them more in pots, to be fair. We've got a few on the patio grouped together to keep them flowering, because you can keep them flowering literally right the way through till the autumn. The important thing is you've got to take the dead heads off. You don't just snap them off, you want the stalk as well, and just it snaps off the main stem quite easy. And do that, I would do it, look at them a couple of times a week. As soon as they start to go over, snap them off, and you'll keep getting more and more.
So snap rather than use secateurs or
because if you snip them off, you get just a dead stalk. And if you follow the stalk down to where it grows from the stem, there's a bit of a knuckle. Just give it a little pull and it snaps off nice and cleanly there. It's a good time to sow Sweet Williams. If you like Sweet Williams, another old-fashioned flower, but it's a beautiful flower. A little bit of a fragrance to it, and they last forever in a vase in the house with a bit of foliage. So if you want them for next year, now is the time to buy yourself a packet of seed, sow them in a tray, get some young plants to put into the garden in the autumn, spare bit of room in your veg plot, and you'll get beautiful blooms next year with those. In the greenhouse, been side shooting the tomatoes, another thing we need to do little and often. So we want the side shoots growing between the main stem and the leaf, so we keep that straight stem. We just pinch them out.
I think we have a video about that, one of our Pots and Trowels video of a catch-up in the greenhouse, don't we?
There you go.
Yeah.
It's always as if
Check out
it's
the
been
catch in the
produced.
greenhouse. I was thinking about it, because I am side stemming. It's side stemming, isn't it? I've got that right. Side shooting my tomatoes that are outside, and I was thinking that we've got some flowers on them, but they feel like a bit slower. But is that normal? I mean, they're outside, and it's been
cool though, hasn't it? I mean, we've. I mean, here we are. Where are we now? What's the date? I mean,
so we're recording this on, I think, is it the 14th?
14th, middle of June.
Of June. And it's been really cool at night. The temperatures have been getting down to sort of 7 degrees, something like that. And we've had the heating on a few nights, and I've had the log burner on the other day. It was so cold. So, because haven't we been told it's been the warmest May?
Yeah, I heard that today. I was incredulous.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I do. I don't know whether
it depends how they measure it and where.
Yeah, I can say, well, it wasn't round here. Certainly, it wasn't round, because it was. I think it was warm early on in May, but towards the end of May, it got really, really cold. So it's purely the weather, Sean. I think if we need some warmth now to get things moving again. They will be fine. Don't forget that if they're in flower, you need that little bit of high potash fertiliser.
Once a week. Saturday is my feeding day.
Good.
Strawberries and tomatoes.
Have you got plenty of feed? I'll send you a bottle home.
Amazing.
And finally, pen stem cuttings. Again, this is the video we've got out at the moment on YouTube. And we're looking at one called Marjorie Fish, which is a beautiful variety. No relation to me as Marjorie, although I did used to have an Auntie Marjorie, but it's not the same one. But it's now's the time to take little shoots as cut-ins so you can raise some more plants for next year, because if we get a bad winter they can be damaged, pen stemons. It's always nice to have a few spares to plant around the garden to give the friends. So just little cut-ins. Tells you how to do it on the video.
And they're great for bees, aren't they?
Oh, they are.
They are. They were all over. I got some good shots of the bees on the penstemon as well. I have a little question, because in my working in the garden yesterday, a lot of our roses are flowering beautifully, but there's a bit of a debate, isn't there, about how to deadhead roses. Some people say just snap the flower off at the top, just under the flower bud, and then other people say cut it down a bit towards the leaf.
I've seen Martin use secateurs on them.
Yeah.
I'm lazy. I do them with.
I tend to just flick it with my fingers, and then
you can do it while you're walking past.
Exactly.
Right? You
Yeah.
have to go and get the secateur.
Yeah.
And I think it depends to a certain extent on the type of rose. If it's,
You can never get a straight
There's
answer.
Well, no, because if it's a hybrid tea rose and they tend to produce a stem with one rose on the top, then I would always cut those down with secateurs about half the length of the stem, and it will produce a new shoot and another one. But some of the roses we've got, I mean, there's a lovely one in the garden called Harlow Carr, named after the garden, of course, which is a shrub rose, and it starts off with one main rose, but then there's lots of side shoots immediately below it, and you get this cluster of roses that open at different times. So you can't cut that down because you'd lose all your roses. So with those, I just snap them off, and when they've all finished, then I would prune it down.
Okay.
So you can keep them flowering for ages that way.
We've got a David Austin rose called Eglantine that does that. And
Yes,
that's really,
lovely
really
one.
nice.
Eglantine.
Well, actually, I've mentioned this on a podcast before, but I kind of overdid it with the cutting of the roses. But they've come back. But what I've realised is that one of our roses, I didn't realise, is a climber or rambler or something.
Right.
Or it appears to be now. It didn't feel like it was before. Is that normal?
No, not really, Sean.
Maybe we need to think about this on another occasion when I can describe it properly. But yeah, lots of the stalks needed support, whereas is it stalks? Yeah, anyway, stems.
Yeah.
Whereas the other roses have just grown back.
Yeah.
This one
So
just
it
went.
is. Well, some of them are sort of semi-climbers. So they're not the big ones that go 20 feet, but they do need a bit of support. So that's fine.
It's got support, so
It's got supports and it's got flowers. What more can you want?
It didn't have supports, but it has now.
It has now, exactly. Yes, excellent. So we've done quite a lot this week, haven't we? Yeah,
Yeah. There's always more jobs to do.
More jobs to do. Well, we're going to get you out in the garden now, Mrs. Fish.
Yeah.
So me and Sean will have a cup of tea and watch
Yeah.
it.
Sounds like a plan.
Probably.
Yeah,
And we'll be back next week, won't we?
we will.
We will.
See you then.
Bye. Watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter or X, and subscribe to the podcast and never miss a thing. For more information, go to potsandtrowels.com.